So hey everyone, and welcome to the National 4 and 5 biology courses. So basically, me and Miss Elder have added all of the third years that might be doing biology and also all of the National 5s that we're doing over 2 years. So you guys should have access to all of the video tutorials. If someone doesn't have access, can you please email either me or Miss Elder? So you'll have to bear with me as I hate making video recordings. I'm sure that you've all missed my lovely voice. So anyway, everyone should have been added to a Teams and a Google Drive which contains the folders and files that you'll need to access the course. So what you first need to do is go to Files, click on Cell Biology, which should be number 1, and then click on Cell Structure again, should be labelled number 1. And then if you want to print out worksheets that go with the PowerPoint, then pause the video and do so. These are found in Cell Structure Activities and Consumables. Then go to the PowerPoint, and we're working on the 1.1 Cell Structure and Function PowerPoint today. Okay. Right, so the course is made up of 3 units. So there's cell biology, multicellular, and then there's life on Earth. So the first one we'll be looking at is cell biology. So it is split into 8 different key areas, which you can see in the slideshow. So we've got cell structure, which is the one that we are working on. Then you've got transport, producing new cells, DNA, and the production of proteins and enzymes, genetic engineering, respiration, and photosynthesis. So today we're going to be learning about cell structure. So for your learning intention, you need to be able to know the 4 different cell types and the different parts in each of the different cell types, and you need to know the function of each of the different parts. You also need to be able to describe the similarities and differences between the cell types. So to be successful, you need to be able to label the parts of the 4 different cells and know the function of each part. You need to be able to describe the differences and similarities between each of the cell types. And then after you watch this video, and then there'll be another video tutorial, you'll need to complete the cell structure homework and also answer the exam practice questions and complete the National 5 James Torrance questions, which you can send in to me so I can check that you are understanding the work. Okay. Well, what we would normally do is we would do a little quiz that involves 7 questions, and that would tell us your previous knowledge from last year. So this quiz is a true or false quiz, so you just need to try and figure out whether the answers are true or false. So cells are the basic units of life, so do you think that's true or do you think that's false? So the answer is true, cells are the basic unit of life. So the next question is, nothing smaller than a cell can be classed as a living organism. So whether you think that is true or false, you write that down and then I'll tell you the answer. So the answer is true. The next question is, organisms composed of one cell are called unicellular organisms. So again, I will tell you the answer. So it's true. Insects are unicellular organisms, so write down whether you think that's true or false. The answer is false. The reason being is insects are made up of many cells, so they're actually multicellular organisms. Cells are all the same shape, so that would be false. Lots of different cells are different shapes because they need to perform specific functions, like your red blood cell is definitely different shape to your sperm cell. All cells have 3 basic structures. That is true. Animal cells possess more structures than plant cells. That one is false. Plant cells actually contain more structures than animal. So what we would then get you to do is then we get you to label some animal and plant cell drawings from what you remember from last year. So if you guys draw your animal and plant cells, and then we will see what you know, and I will add the next. So usually where there is a pencil, you would make a note of what a cell is. So we should already know from first and second year and third year that all living things are made of cells, and cells are the basic building block of life. So plants and animals are made up of many cells, so that means that they are multicellular. So multi meaning lots of. So each of their cells performs a specific job, whereas living things that are made up of only one cell are called unicellular. And uni for one, like you get a unicycle, which means one wheel. Now unicellular organisms have to have all of their functions in the one cell. So all of the different functions like eating, releasing waste, etc. have to be performed by the one cell. It's not like us where we've got lots of different cells that can perform different functions. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the 4 different types of cells. So you'll be looking at your plant cell, your animal cell, your fungal cell, and your bacterial cell. And if you have the worksheets, you might want to have them handy so that you could label your different types of cell. So first of all, we're starting with the plant cell, and the plant cell is a rectangular shape. So as you can see, it is a rectangle. And the first part of the plant cell that we're going to watch out for is the big blob in the middle, which is here. Well, it's not in the middle, but you know what I mean. So that part of the cell is called the nucleus. It's usually a circle and it's shaded in this diagram. And what that does is it controls the cell activities. It's kind of like the brain of the cell. The next part of the cell that we're going to look at is the bit that's around the outside of the cell, but is still on the inner bit. So this bit here, which I am highlighting, so not quite on the outside, but the inside of the outside. So that is called your cell membrane, and your cell membrane controls what substances get into and out of the cell. It's important that you mention the word substances, okay? So it controls what substances get into and out of the cell. Basically, it acts like a bodyguard because it's got little pores in it, which are little protein channels, which let things in and out. Right, the next part you have is your ribosomes. So these are these little dots that are all over the cell, and what they do is they are the site of protein synthesis. Your mitochondrion is your next part of your cell after your ribosome, and it has little folded membranes, so it's like an oval with folded membranes, and its function is the site of aerobic respiration, and it produces a lot of your energy. But your function and what you want to say for function is that it's the site of aerobic respiration. So we'll go into more detail about the mitochondrion when we come to respiration, which is another key area topic of this course. So now we're going to look at the part here, which is basically all of the bit that's got the little faded grey bit. Basically, that is called the cytoplasm, and the cytoplasm is basically the jelly that holds all of the ultrastructures of the cell, and it is the site of chemical reactions. So the function of the cytoplasm is it is the site of chemical reactions. So moving on to this part here, this is called the vacuole, and the vacuole's role is to store water and solute, which makes cell sap. The next part of the cell that we're looking at is the chloroplast, and the chloroplasts have these three little membranes usually, and they contain a green pigment called chlorophyll. They are usually green, and their function is the site of photosynthesis. We'll go into photosynthesis in another key area as well, so we'll go into more detail about that. Not all plants contain chloroplasts. Some plants that grow underground don't contain chloroplasts, like onions, and that's because they can't get to the light, so they can't carry out photosynthesis because the pigment in the chloroplast, which is called chlorophyll, would not be able to absorb the light. The last part of the plant cell which we are looking at is this outside line here that surrounds the cell, and what this is called is the cell wall. The cell wall provides support and strength to the plant, and it is made of cellulose. Now you need to know that the plant cell wall is made of cellulose. That is important because other cell walls are not made of cellulose. Okay, so that's the plant cell finished with. So next we have an animal cell, and as you can see it's slightly different from the plant cell because it's not a rectangle, it's got an irregular shape. So the first part of the animal cell that we are going to look at is this part here, which you might be able to recognise from the plant cell, and it's because it is the nucleus. So the nucleus controls cell activities, that's its function. Next we're going to look at this part here, which again you should recognise, and it is because it is the mitochondria, and the mitochondria is the site of aerobic respiration. Now the next part we have in the animal cell is these little dots. This time they're attached to something, sometimes they'll be floating in the cytoplasm, and these little dots are called the ribosome, and they are the site of protein synthesis. Next we have the outside of the animal cell, and the outside of the animal cell is different in an animal than a plant because it is called the cell membrane. And we should remember that the cell membrane is where substances can get in and out of the cell, so it controls what substances get in and out of the cell. And finally, we have the next part, which is all of the bit that's the jelly of the cell, and that is called the cytoplasm, and it is the site of chemical reactions. Okay, so cytoplasm, all the jelly bit, and it is the site of chemical reactions. So now looking at the fungal cell. So this time the fungal cell is an oval shape, and it's very, very similar to what a plant has, apart from it does not contain chloroplast. So we'll go through each structure again, but this should be good revision. So first of all, we're going to look at the outside of it. So this part going around the outside, which is the cell wall, which provides strength and support. The next part of the fungal cell we're going to look at is these little dots that are floating in the cytoplasm, and they are called the ribosome, which is the site of protein synthesis. Now we're going to look at the bit that's on the outside, but not quite the outer outside, the inner outside. And the inner outside is the cell membrane, which contains the pores, so it controls what substances get into and out of the cell. The next part we are going to look at is this part here, which is the vacuole, and the vacuole stores water and solutes. If we go to the next part, which is the jelly of the cell, that is your cytoplasm, which is the site of chemical reactions. And then this part here, which is the circle that's shaded in, is the nucleus, which controls all cell activities. Right, the last part of the fungal cell we're going to look at is this part here, which is the mitochondria, and it's the site of aerobic respiration. So the last cell that we're going to look at is the bacterial cell. The bacterial cell comes in lots of different shapes and sizes, and it sometimes has these little hair things which are called pillets, which stick to surfaces. It sometimes also has this thing called a flagellum, which is the tail that helps it swim. And also it sometimes has a capsule, which is an outer layer out with the cell wall for protection. So the things you need to know about a bacterial cell is the first part is this part here, which is like the jelly of the cell, and it is called the cytoplasm, and it is the site of chemical reactions. The next part you need to know is these little polo things here, which are called your plasmids. Now, the bacterial cell doesn't have a nucleus, so the plasmid and the circular chromosome, which is over here, basically take on the same role as the nucleus. So your plasmids are for controlling cell activity, and they also transfer genetic information from cell to cell. So we will learn more about plasmids when we come to the genetic engineering key area of the course. The next part of the bacterial cell that you need to know is this bit here, which is the outer part of it, which is the cell wall, which provides the bacterial cell with strength and support. It is not made up of cellulose. It's made up of something else, which is usually peptidoglycan, but you don't need to know that. You just need to know that it's not made of cellulose. The next part that we're going to look at is this part here, which is the inner of the outside, basically, of the beside the cell wall, and that is the cell membrane, which controls what substances get into and out of the cell. And then we have these little dots again. So these are called the ribosome, and all of these little dots are the site of protein synthesis. And then finally, we have something called the circular chromosome, which we were talking about earlier, which is not really in the shape of a circle, but basically it is DNA, and it controls cell activities, and it is involved in the transfer of genetic information. So it's the same exact function as the plasmid. So we've now looked at your 4 different types of cells. We've looked at your plant, your animal, your fungus, and your bacteria. Now you guys need to make sure that you can label each part of each of the cells, because you probably will get asked that in an exam question. So the next thing you'd want to know, so as you see there's a pencil up in the top corner of the screen, is that the plant cell wall is made up of cellulose, which is a structural carbohydrate. Okay, and the other cell walls, so your fungus cell wall and your bacterial cell wall, they are made of other materials. So that is really important, because the exam questions that come up usually will say, what is a plant cell wall made up of, or how are plant cell walls different from other cells? And your answer would be that they're made up of the structural carbohydrate cellulose. So now you should be an expert at labeling the different parts of the cells, and you can now go to home and go to activities, and you should see a word sort, and you can either mix cards up and try and sort them out into the correct order and try to get your time down as far as possible, or you can play snap with someone in your family just to make sure you know the different cell parts and their different functions. And now next we'll go on to the table of all of the different parts of all of the different cells. So everybody should be able to fill out this table without looking at it, because we've been over all of the different functions so many times. But our nucleus, it's found in our plants, our animals, and our fungi cell. So the only cell a nucleus is not found in is our bacterial cell. So your function of your nucleus is it controls cell activities. Then we have our cell membrane, so it's found in every single cell that you can get, so all 4 different cells, and its function is to control the movement of substances in and out of the cell. Now it is important that you put that it controls the movement of substances, and not it controls movement, because you won't get your mark. Okay, your mitochondrion is found in your plants, animals, and fungi, so again, bacteria are missing that. So that is the site of aerobic respiration. Your next one is function is to contains chlorophyll, a green pigment which traps light energy needed for photosynthesis, and it's only found in green plants. So that would be your chloroplast. Your large central vacuole, which is found in plants and fungi, it stores water and solutes as cell sap. And your next one, which provides strength and support to the cell, is found in plants, bacteria, and fungi, and it's not found in an animal cell. And that would be your cell wall. And remember, your cell wall in your plants is made up of cellulose, but not in the other two. So your circular chromosome, which controls cell activities and transfer of genetic information from cell to cell, is only found in your bacterial cell. And same with the next one, which is your plasmid, okay? So they both have the same function, so it controls cell activities and transfer of genetic information from cell to cell. Your next part, which is found in all cells, is the site of protein synthesis, which would be your ribosome. And your last part, which is your cytoplasm, would be your site of chemical reactions, and again, it is found in all cells. So if you go to these links below, you'll be able to go onto YouTube and you'll be able to see the two different cell songs that will help you remember the cell structures and their functions. So for the next activity, we're going to describe the similarities and differences between all of the different cell types. So we're going to start off with plant and animal cells, and then plant and fungal cells, and then fungal and bacterial cells. So you guys might want to pause the video now, and you might want to make a list of similarities and a list of differences before I go over the answers. So with plant and animal cells, they both have a nucleus, a cell membrane, a cytoplasm, a ribosome, and a mitochondria. But the difference is that plant cells also have, in addition to that, a cell wall, chloroplast, and a vacuole, which animal cells do not have. For your plant and fungal cells, they're actually very similar. So they have both got a nucleus, cell membrane, cytoplasm, ribosome, and mitochondria. The difference between the two is the cell wall in a plant cell is made of cellulose. The cell wall in a fungal cell is made up of something else, okay, called chitin, but like you don't need to know that. And then your fungal cell do not have chloroplasts, so they can't make their own food like plants can, because plants have chloroplasts. And the next one is your fungal versus your bacterial cell. So your similarities between your fungal and bacterial cell are they both have ribosomes, they both have a cell membrane, and they both have cytoplasm. Again, the difference is that their cell walls are different because bacterial cells walls are usually made up of peptidoglycan, but you don't need to know that, you just need to know that they're different. Fungal cells also have mitochondria, nucleuses, and vacuoles, which bacterial cells don't have. Whereas bacterial cells have plasmids and they also have circular DNA, which fungal cells don't have, in place of a nucleus. So for the next activity, you need to tick the boxes for what has what. So for example, if you've got an animal cell had a cell membrane, you would put a tick in this box here, and so on. So you guys should try and do this for all of your different cell types and see what you remember, and pause the video before I give you the answers. So this is the answers that you should have got. So all of the cells contain a cell membrane, all of the cells contain cytoplasms, all of the cells but bacteria contain a nucleus, all of the cells but animal contain a cell wall, only plant and fungi contain a sap vacuole, your plants are the only one that contains chloroplast, mitochondria is found in animal, plants and fungi, so only bacteria is missing it, and your ribosomes is found in all cells, and your plasmid is only found in your bacterial cell. One that is missing is your circular chromosome, and that would be found only in your bacteria as well. So now you should be expert on your cell structure and your cell functions. So what you can do now is go into the back to the home folder and pause the video, and you can go into cell biology, and if you go to 9 teaching guide and exam practice book, you can then try the exam practice questions on page 1 to 3. And then after that, if you go to home and then you go to National 345 textbook and click on the National 5 Testing Your Knowledge James Torrance textbook, and you answer the questions on page 5, and then you send the answers to the questions into me, then I can mark them. So here are some review questions. So for the first one, it's what are cells? The second one's name the structure found in an animal cell, e.g. cheek cell. Name the structures found in a plant cell, e.g. onion epidermis, and name the structures found in a green plant cell, e.g. a leaf cell. So if you guys want to answer the questions and pause the video, then I will go over the answers with you. So for the first question, what are cells? Cells are your basic unit of life, so they're your building blocks. Name the structures found in an animal cell, cheek cell. So you should have had the nucleus, cytoplasm, cell membrane, the mitochondria, and the ribosomes. And name the structures found in a plant cell, e.g. an onion epidermis. So it would be your nucleus, your cytoplasm, your cell membrane, your mitochondria, your ribosome, your cell wall, and your vacuole. Note that this one doesn't have chloroplast because it's not in a green plant. The last one, name the structures found in a green plant cell, e.g. leaf cell, would be your nucleus, your cytoplasm, your cell membrane, mitochondria, ribosome, cell wall, vacuole, and chloroplasts. So this is a little problem solving activity and it's got some questions. So first you've got to calculate the average cell size using the cell types above. Now, average calculations are common in biology, so what you need to do first of all is you need to find the total. So you need to find the total of all the cell sizes, so you need to add 100, add 180, add 35, add 85, add 65, and you can use a calculator, and from that you should get 465, but that just gives you the total. So we're looking for the average, so we need to then divide it by your sets or your groups, so the number of groups you have. So we've used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different cell types, so we then need to divide the total number by 5, which equals 93, and then we need to remember our unit, which is micrometers, which is seen up here. So the micros, like a U with a tick tail and an M. For the next part of this question, you need to draw a bar graph with your results. So you need to work out what's going on your x-axis and what's going on your y-axis. So on your x-axis, it's always going to be this first column, okay, so what you have controlled, and on your y-axis, it'll then be what you have measured. So in this case, it will be cell size. So let's go over how you would plot a bar chart, well, as best as I can with the slideshow. So for your bar chart, you'll need to have some graph paper that you'll need to print off the internet. So for all graphs, you need to start by having your x and your y-axis. So there's your x-axis and your y-axis, and you need to label both your x-axis and your y-axis by your table heading. So as we said, the thing that you have control over would be on your x-axis, and the thing that you were measuring, such as cell size, would be on your y-axis. Now remember, on your y-axis, the thing that you're measuring needs to have units, and so would your x-axis. However, we don't need units in this case because it's just names. After you've labelled your axes, you need to then work out what your scale is going to be and what your other labels on your x-axis are going to be. So you do this by picking out coins. So you find your maximum number. For this case, it's 180 micrometers. So you would want to figure out, can I go up in ones? If you can't go up in ones, can I go up in twos? If you can't go up in twos, can you go up in fives, then tens, then 20s, then 50s, and so on. Your scale on your y-axis and x-axis must be even. So for example, I have went up in 20s, so you've got 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, 120, so on. And then you start to label your x-axis. So the labels for the x-axis are the names, so you've got your red blood cell, white blood cell, and so on. Now you need to make your bars even. So here are all of the bars, so you go to your 100 and then you would draw a ruler line at the top and then you would bring it down. And then you would go to your 180 and you'd leave a gap that's even size, and all of your bars must be even. It's best to draw a graph with a pencil so that if you make a mistake you can rub it out. There is a trick with a graph, so if you want to know what the tiny little boxes are, so usually you would have tiny little boxes and then you'd have a bold line which would be your bigger box. So what you do to work out how much each of these tiny boxes are is you would use this number, your first number, which is in your first bold line, and then you divide it by how many boxes are there. So for in this case there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes, so it would be 20 divided by 5, which would give you 4, which would mean that each of your little boxes was equal to 4. Now you need to be really careful when you're drawing a graph, when you're plotting this line here. It needs to be done with a ruler, because if you go over it just a little bit like this, you could lose your mark, or if you even go over just a little bit like that. So it's important that that line is bang on the line and it's straight and drawn with a ruler. And you can give your graph a title just to finish it off. So in this case it would be cell size. And that is how you draw a bar chart in biology. Last slide, woohoo! So what you can do is you can try to answer all of the 7 questions, and you can pause it just now, and then when you restart it I'll tell you the answers. So what is the difference between unicellular organisms and multicellular? Well, unicellular organisms are made up of one cell, whereas multicellular organisms are made up of many cells. Second question, name 5 parts of the ultrastructure of cells in both plants and animals. That would be your plant and animal have nucleuses, cell membranes, cytoplasm, ribosomes, and mitochondria. For the next part, name 3 structures found in a plant cell only that are not in an animal. So that would be, for that one, your cell wall, your chloroplast, and your vacuole are found in your cell wall only. So what is the circular piece of DNA only found in a bacterial cell called? Well, the little circles that look like little polos are called plasmids. What structure is the site of aerobic respiration? That would be your mitochondria. What structure makes proteins? That would be your ribosome. And what carbohydrate is a plant cell wall made of? It would be the structural carbohydrate cellulose. Okay, well done guys. So make sure you've tried to answer all of the exam questions that I've told you to do in the textbook work and send it in. And then after the next video, you should be able to complete number 1 homework. Okay, thank you for listening. Bye.